everybody. Welcome back to GC 365. We are on day 221, which means we are so close. Kind of.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. We're over halfway.
Yeah.
So congrats to you. It is August 9th. And the reason why I say that is because yesterday, what was it, Matthew?
It was our birthday.
Exactly. We share the same birthday, which means we're very special. And today, we're just that much wiser for you with our knowledge of the Bible. So congrats to us. You can sing to us some other time. You don't have to do it now. Maybe later with the family, they can enjoy cake for us, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you don't know who we are, that is totally fine. I am Pastor Haylee, and I am the high school pastor. And I already mentioned your name, but you can tell us again who you are.
I'm Matthew.
That's right. And what grade are you going into?
11th. I'm a junior now.
See, you got this.
Yep.
You're also almost halfway done.
Yeah.
With high school. So we have some really good conversation we're going to have today about the Bible or some good stuff, all about these difficult conversations all these people were having. So we're going to start in Ezra chapter 8, verses 21 through 26. So we're halfway through that chapter a little bit. So if you need to go backtrack a little bit of what was going on, you totally can. But basically, Ezra has taken all of these people and they're heading into Jerusalem. And what I read and understood was that they had to travel 900 miles on foot. So it would take them about 5 months to do so. Can you imagine like having to walk that far?
My feet would fall off. I would
Exactly.
not have feet.
No feet for any of us. When there's planes, cars, was it planes, trains, automobiles? Is that a movie? I feel like it's a movie.
It's probably a movie.
It's a movie.
Yeah.
Okay. But they had to go on foot, and I couldn't even fathom the idea. But before they left on this trip, Ezra took the time to spiritually prepare for what was going to come during the trip. When they arrived, he was always asking for God to be present, which I thought was very important. And we don't do that very often, or we try to put that at the front of our mind. But if you're going on a trip, you typically have your packing list, all the other things ahead. And then when you're on your way, you're like, hey, let's pray for the trip really quick. Mm-hmm. Does your family do that? Like, say a prayer in the car ride, get us there safely? I
don't go on trips a lot, honestly. So
maybe so you wouldn't know. Maybe that's what you can work on this year.
Next time.
There you go.
Yeah.
Did you get anything from this chapter specifically?
From chapter 8?
Yeah.
So during chapter 8, he was talking about praying, and he was talking about how he was ashamed to ask for soldiers from the king at the time. Yeah. So he was praying. And I thought that just stood out to me for whatever reason. It's like he still has the thought of what he should do, but he chose to follow God and trust God instead of that.
Yeah, that's huge. He let his relationship with God overpower his human side of things. And so we can all take a lesson from Ezra in that, and knowing, even if you're not going on a trip, how can you prepare yourself spiritually for the day even, instead of all of these physical or these worries that we set in our mind going above that. So then we head right into chapter 9, and they've now made it. They're in Jerusalem, and all of the people, I don't know, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the people are doing this intermarriage. So the Israelites are marrying all the people in the lands that they have now taken over. And you had I want to read this quick verse that I just thought was funny, which verse 3 says, "When I heard this is Ezra, I tore my cloak and my shirt, pulled hair from my head and beard, and sat down utterly shocked." And that happens a few times in the Old Testament. I think that it's been said a few times on these podcasts and videos, but I couldn't, in that much anger that you're tearing your shirt, okay, but then pulling your hair out.
Yeah, it must hurt.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that. So I thought that was funny that that's what they do, but it's a huge sign of humiliation almost. But you had a really great question about this chapter of kind of what was going on there.
Yeah, so pretty much all throughout chapter 9, he is all devastated by them marrying the people that were there, and even though they don't know God well. So he was all mad. And then I was wondering, back in chapter 7, the king who sent Ezra gave him a letter, and on the letter it said to judge the people who knew God, and for those who don't, to teach them. So I was wondering, is it right for Ezra to be mad at the people for marrying those who don't know God, or is it right to teach those who don't know God, whether they're marrying each other or not? Marrying, whatever.
Marrying.
Yeah.
I like that word. Yeah. We're going to marriage. That is a new word we're going to add. We said we were wiser.
Yeah.
That's not the same as smarter sometimes. It's different.
Yeah.
But you know what? I thought that was a fabulous question, and good for you for going back and like double checking. I encourage you to do that. If you ever have questions about the reading, to go back, double check. Hey, what just happened? Or you had remembered something happened where they were supposed to be teaching, not judging. And I also in this chapter was able to go and look in the study part of my Bible, and was like, okay, first of all, my question was, why was Ezra praying for their sins? He wasn't the one messing up, but he had recognized that sin is serious, and also that hardly ever does, if I'm the one to sin, would it only affect me, that it could very well affect many people around me. And so he was praying for them, and it became known to him that he knew his people were struggling with their faith. They had made some mistakes before they entered, and then he prayed for mercy, and God gave them mercy, and they came into Jerusalem, and then they were now sinning again. And so his worry was they weren't strong spiritual leaders at that time enough that they would probably be persuaded by their spouses to either worship these idols or take in part in these pagan cultures. And so that's kind of where his worry was, and thinking, hey, we need to stand strong. We're not all the way ready yet.
Yeah.
But I'd say if that was kind of, many people probably had that question, that it's important to be a strong spiritual leader in that. In 1 Corinthians, we'll head into the New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapter 5. This one, kind of a doozy. It's not something that we always like to talk about, but I literally wrote down, this passage is heavy. And so what's happening here is Paul's writing to the church of Corinth because there is a man who is sexually practicing things with his stepmother. How awesome is that? That's literally the first part of the chapter. And so you're like, okay, wow, we're in for it right now. And this whole thing is him telling people, or telling the church, hey, you need to take care of this man. You need to kick him out of the church. You're not addressing his sins. And he does say there at the end, it's not our job to judge outsiders, but we certainly need to we need to judge basically the insiders, the believers. And so I can understand why it would leave somebody angry, especially a believer, thinking, I'm not meant to judge. That's God's job. In fact, we just talked about this at Encounter, that, hey, that's God's role. And that's exactly right. As far as the outsiders go, our job is, like you said, to teach about God, not judge them. But as a church, we have to remember the importance and the difference of being holding others accountable, and also that's different than judging one another. Yeah. Did you get anything from that chapter?
So I did.
That's good.
Yep. In Corinthians 5:5, it talks about like sending this man out, but it says to send him to Satan, so his flesh can get destroyed, and so his spirit can be saved on the day of the Lord. And I was wondering, how does sending him out save him at the end? So I Googled this because I don't know.
Yeah.
And I decided on like a thing out of what I read. It was talking about, one, how they sent him off as an example to say, like, this is not okay, because at the time they were just letting this happen.
Yeah.
And so he can, one, like, try what the world has to offer and realize that, like, this isn't right, this isn't okay, and end up repenting for his sins and going back through Jesus.
Oh, yeah. That's great. And I think sometimes you hear people say, hit rock bottom in order to, they need to hit rock bottom in order to realize what they had, or even just to go out there and see, okay, this is what the world offers you versus what did God have to offer me. And it's not always a fun conversation to be held accountable by somebody else, but that is what we're meant to do as believers. And the job for us is not to hurt one another with our words, but honestly to look at it and help each other out. So we will end with our Psalms and our Proverbs. In Psalms 31, 1-8, it's talking about completely committing yourself to God. And we try to understand what that means. What do you think the importance of that is in giving yourself 100% over to God?
So I think it's really easy to not give yourself 100. Like I don't, it's hard because I think really committing is putting God first in like every sense.
Yeah.
So, like I can go to this party, or I can go to church. I can go do a job application, or I can pray. It's hard to do that, but it's important when it comes down to it, because, we all have choices on what to do. Yep. And at the end of the day, I think God's choices are always better.
Yes, they are. I'm happy that you see that. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right at Encounter. I'm not going to take full credit. That is all God and you working on that. But it reminds me too of the very first thing we read back in Ezra, and what you had said, that, he was worried about asking for soldiers, but he did it anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's what complete commitment looks like. In Proverbs, it's very short, so I'll go ahead and read it. 21, 1-2. It says, "The king's heart is like a stream of water directed by the Lord. He guides it wherever he pleases. People may be right in their own eyes, but the Lord examines their heart." And this reminded me often when I would help in kids ministry, or was working in kids ministry, or parents even do this. You ask the questions and, would God be happy with your choice? Mm-hmm. And, almost like setting them back to, oh no, he probably wouldn't. And sometimes, you might say that to your teenager, but we also have to ask that question to ourselves as adults and be like, hey, would God appreciate my motives behind this? Because he knows what they are, even when sometimes we don't. So these are fun conversations. Yeah. Always a good time. And so we just thank you guys for tuning in with us. And maybe feel like you've been challenged today to have one of these hard conversations with God, but know that ultimately that's how your faith grows the most. Thank you for watching. Happy birthday, Matthew.
Happy birthday, Haylee.
Thank you. And we will see you guys on Sunday.